Hi there, my name is James Heidema. I am an international coach and an international trainer. The question today is, where can I find some prospects? So, prospects are the key to every salesperson's life. You know, the number one reason why people fail in our business is they run out of prospects. So, often I find when people have been in the business for a while, certainly the people I'm coaching, and I'm coaching a number of people around the world, is that they reach a point where they, from their perspective, run out of prospects. And I believe prospects are there. First and foremost, there's a couple of things that you should understand so you don't run out of prospects, is that every prospect that you do get, every referral you do get, always is in your process, and they should remain in your process. And of course, unless they're so rude to you or they are not responsible, you can drop them from the process. But just because they say no is not a reason to take them out of the process. What you want to think about is that maybe it's timing. And so if you do have someone that you reached out to and they've said, I don't want to talk to you, and you've tried to deal with any objections they may have, what you want to say to them at the very end is, I understand the timing isn't right for you today. With your permission, I'd like to follow up in 3 or 6 months because things may change and it may be at that point that you would need my help. So is that acceptable to you? I've said that a number of times. Very seldom, if ever, I don't remember ever someone saying no. Maybe reluctantly they say, yes, call me in 6 months. But the majority have said, yes, call me in 6 months. And so then I call in 6 months and I change my vocabulary. So I say to them, it's Jim Heidema calling from such and such a company. Do you have a moment to speak to me? They say they do. I said, the reason I'm calling is you asked me to call you back, which is true. They asked me to call them back in 6 months. I've called them back in 6 months. And so if you look at your prospects that way, is not that you're burning through them, is that many of them won't meet with you now, but could meet with you in the future. So it's really good you keep good data on everybody you've spoken to. And so if you call them and they say not now, accept that and say not now, but may I call back? And that way, I'm sure, I have no doubt, out of the people you talk to, even though the first time you approach them, they would say no, in subsequent phone calls, some of them will say yes, for sure. I have no doubt. That's been my experience. Okay? The other thing, too, is that after you've been in the business for a while, you have a client base. You know, you have a number. I was coaching an advisor recently, and he had been in the business for 10 months, sold about 50 people, which is a good number of sales over 10 months. And he said, I'm running out of people to call. So I talked to him about the concept of keeping everyone in the sales process. And I said, the other thing is that you should reconnect with each of those 50 people you've already talked to. And this is what you should say. You should say to them, when you call them, hello, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, I value your opinion and I need your help. Would you help me if you could? And most people I've said that to will say, yes, I'll help you if I could. And I don't remember ever having anyone to say to me that they wouldn't help me when I phrased it that way. I value your opinion. I need your help. Would you help me if you could? Then I say, you know, as you know, I'm building a financial services business. And I could spend 70% of my time looking for people like you and being available to my current customers 30% of the time. Or I could spend 30% of my time looking for people that I can help and being available 70% of my time for my customers. So here's the question. Would you rather I was less available or more available? Most customers said, well, I want more availability. When I call you, I want you to respond. I said, fine, then I need your help. I'd like you to imagine that you were in the business and you were going out there to help people. I'd like you to think about those people you care about those people, your family, your friends, your acquaintances, your colleagues, who you think highly of, that you would like to help. And I'd like to work together with you to help those people. So if you were in my shoes, who would be the first 6 people you would like to help? Just give me their first names. I'm not going to call them at this point. I just want to take you through it. So they give me 6 names: Sarah, Arnelis, Getamius, Frida, whatever. And then I'll ask them about why that name, why Frida, why Getamius, why Gina, why Aurelius, why John. And they'll say, because they've got a new car, they bought a new home, they got a promotion, they just had a baby, they just got married, or whatever. There'll be some reason why they added that name. And I say, fine, okay. And do they all reside in the area here? They say yes or no, whatever. And I say, okay, tell me a bit more about each one of those people. Well, they're married to Sarah, and they've been married for 2 months now, and they're a really wonderful couple, and yada, yada, whatever that background story is. They don't have any children yet or whatever. And I will note all that because that will come up in my phone call when I approach them. So I said, okay. And when you call them, what number will you call? Of course, I'm not going to call them without your permission, but if you were to call them, what number would you call? And they give me a phone number. And I said, okay. Now, we have 2 ways we can approach this. Is one, you can text them and introduce me that I have added value to you, the customer. I hope that's the case. Is that the case? And they say yes. And I say, okay, if I've added value, what kind of value did I add to you? And they say, well, I feel more secure. I've got some insurance, or I've got some investment. I'm saving now, whatever that may be. Okay, whatever that customer chose to do. And I say, okay, well, that's what I want to do with the people you care about, is help them improve their quality of life. They said, okay, all right. And I said, okay, you could text them, introduce them, mention that I've helped you and that I'm interested in helping them in any way I can. That's option 1. Option 2 is you phone them and you have a much more deeper conversation with them. And so the person says, I'll text them, and I say, fine. Or they say, I'm going to telephone them. And I said, okay, all right. Let's talk about that telephone call. Let's talk about what you're going to share with them. It's really important that they understand a number of things. One is that I'm not going to reach into their pocket and take their money in the first meeting. I'm not. That's not the way I behaved with you, and that's not the way I'm going to behave with them. What's going to happen in the first appointment is I'll give them a brief introduction about choice and dignity, which I did with you. And then I spent the majority of the time using a tool called the gap analysis, which looks at where they are today and where they'd like to be. If they find we find there's a gap, and if they want to do something about that gap, then we'll have a subsequent meeting. But in that first meeting, I will not make any recommendations. I will not ask them to buy anything. I will not reach in their pocket, and I will not charge them for that time. So it's important you explain that to them in the telephone call. Okay, now I'd like to make a deal with you, and it's a 7-day deal, okay? So in the next 7 days, I'd like you to reach out to these 6 people and make them aware that I will be calling. And if I don't hear from you in the next 7 days, after that, I will call each of them. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to leave this meeting committed to make those phone calls so that I can reach out and help the people you care about. And it's like you have a stack of things on your desk of all the things you want to do, and it'll be at the top. And then life will happen and something will get on top, and then it'll get further down the list. And you may not have opportunity to do it. I just want to have a sense of urgency that we can help people, and let's do it as soon as we can, as soon as they'd like that help to be received. And so again, can you agree in the next 7 days to make those calls? Customer says yes, and I said, if I don't hear from you, I will call those people after that. Now, what I will do is I will advise you whether they met with me. Okay? I will not tell you anything about what they've done, just as I will not tell them anything about what you've done, because that's absolutely confidential between you and I. And so, are you okay with those terms? Fine, great. I'll let you know how I make out. Thank you very much. So again, if you're wondering where are the prospects coming from, certainly you have a number of sources. first and foremost is any prospect that you ever get stays in the sales process as long as possible. And even though they say no at this point, they may say yes in the future if you keep in contact. Next is go to your customer base, make them aware of what you're doing, make them aware of where you're going to spend your time and your desire to help with them, work with them to help people that they care about. I hope you found value in this video.